The cry for help, the morning tides of Serenity Prime rolled gently across the coral cities, their bioluminescent waves painting the underwater metropolis in soft blues and greens. Ambassador Coral floated through the central plaza, her translucent fins catching the filtered sunlight that streamed down from the surface. The Aquarian people moved gracefully through their liquid world, their gill slits fluttering in contentment as they tended to their vast kelp gardens and crystal formations. Serenity Prime had been a symbol of peace for over 3 centuries. The Aquarians had never known war, their entire civilization built on harmony with their ocean world. They solved conflicts through patient discussion, their leaders chosen for wisdom rather than strength. Their technology focused on healing and growth rather than destruction. Even their defenses were designed merely to redirect rather than harm. Potential threats. That peaceful existence shattered when the scanners in the orbital monitoring station began screaming warnings that would haunt Coral's dreams forever. Ambassador Coral, urgent transmission from the surface stations, called Dr. Marina, her voice carrying the musical tones of distress that all Aquarians recognized. Marina's normally calm demeanor cracked as she processed the incoming data streams. Unknown vessels approaching the system. Their energy signatures are massive, and they're not responding to our greeting protocols. Coral swam quickly to the central command chamber, her powerful tail propelling her through the water-filled corridors of the government complex. The chamber was a marvel of Aquarian engineering, with living coral walls that could display holographic information and sea anemone-like creatures that served as organic computers. Other Aquarian officials were already gathered, their bioluminescent patches flickering with anxiety. "Show me," Coral commanded, her voice carrying the authority of her position, but none of the harshness that other species might expect from a military leader. The Aquarians had no concept of military leadership because they had never needed one. The display showed 67 vessels approaching Serenity Prime, each one a nightmare of dark metal and cruel design. The ships looked like massive beetles with razor-sharp edges and weapon ports that glowed with malevolent red light. They moved in perfect formation, their course taking them directly toward the planet's orbital gardens where the Aquarians grew, their food in the vacuum of space. Computer analysis identifies them as Skarathi Empire vessels, Marina reported, her voice barely above a whisper. They're a hive-minded species from the outer rim. According to Galactic Federation records, they're expansionist conquerors who strip worlds of resources and enslave or eliminate native populations. Coral felt the water around her grow cold with fear. The Skarathi were everything the Aquarians were not: aggressive, militaristic, and completely without mercy. Stories of their conquests had reached even the peaceful worlds of the inner systems. Tales of beautiful civilizations reduced to barren wastelands in a matter of days. "Have they responded to our communications?" Coral asked, though she already knew the answer from Marina's expression. No response to any frequency. They're ignoring all Federation protocols and standard greeting procedures. Based on their approach vector and formation, they're preparing for planetary assault. The first attack came without warning. Streams of superheated plasma erupted from the Skarathi vessels, striking Serenity Prime's orbital gardens with devastating precision. The beautiful zero-gravity farms where the Aquarians grew their food exploded in brilliant flashes of light, sending debris raining down toward the planet's surface. The orbital defense platforms, designed to deflect asteroids and space debris, were overwhelmed in seconds. "They're targeting our food production," Marina gasped, watching the tactical display with horror. "They want to starve us into submission." Coral watched in growing despair as the Skarathi systematically destroyed everything the Aquarians had built in space. Their defensive fleet, consisting of 12 vessels designed for exploration and peaceful contact, launched from hidden bays beneath the ocean floor. The ships were graceful things, shaped like enormous manta rays with flowing fins and bioluminescent patterns that could communicate across vast distances without electronic transmissions. The battle was hopeless from the beginning. The Aquarian ships moved with elegant precision, their captains trying to communicate with the invaders, even as plasma fire tore through their hulls. They returned fire with stun weapons and containment fields, tools designed to incapacitate rather than kill. Against the Skorathi's overwhelming firepower, these peaceful weapons were useless. One by one, Coral watched her people's ships die. The Skorathi showed no mercy, continuing to fire even after the Aquarian vessels were crippled and helpless. Some of the smaller ships tried to ram the enemy vessels in desperate final attacks, but the Skorathi simply moved aside and let them drift past before finishing them with concentrated plasma fire. "Get me a channel to the Galactic Federation," Coral ordered, her voice steady despite the terror she felt. "Priority Alpha Emergency Transmission." Marina's webbed fingers danced over the organic controls. "Channel open, Ambassador." "But the nearest Federation fleet is 12 days away, and they're already engaged with other Skorathi forces. The Empire is attacking multiple worlds simultaneously." Coral's heart sank. The Federation had promised protection to all member worlds, but the Skorathi had planned their assault perfectly. By attacking everywhere at once, they had stretched the Federation's forces too thin to provide meaningful help to any single world. "Is there anyone closer?" Coral asked desperately. "Any Federation member with available ships?" Marina consulted the tactical database, her movements growing more frantic as she searched for hope. "There is one possibility," she said finally. "The humans. They're the newest Federation members, and their home system is only 5 days away. According to the records, they have a significant military fleet." Coral had heard whispers about the humans throughout the Federation. They came from a world called Earth, a place so dangerous that the Federation had initially refused to believe the reports. Earth was classified as a Class 12 Deathworld, a planet where the very environment tried to kill its inhabitants. The humans had evolved in constant conflict with their world and each other, developing a level of aggression that made other species nervous. Most Federation members found humans disturbing. They were loud, emotional, and unpredictable. Their ships were built like fortresses rather than the elegant vessels preferred by other species. They solved problems through direct action rather than careful consideration. But they were also incredibly effective at what they did, and right now, Coral needed effectiveness more than elegance. "Send the message," she ordered. "Full emergency. Protocol. Tell them we're dying and need immediate assistance." As Marina worked to compose the transmission, another wave of Skorathi ships appeared at the edge of the system. These were larger vessels, troop transports, and orbital bombardment platforms. The invasion of Serenity Prime was about to begin in earnest. The message fired into space, carrying the Aquarians' desperate plea across the galaxy toward the mysterious world called Earth. Coral had no idea if the humans would respond or what kind of help they might provide. All she knew was that her people faced extinction, and the Deathworlders were their only hope. On Earth, the message arrived at the Orbital Defense Station, just as Admiral Marcus Rodriguez was finishing his morning briefing. The veteran officer had served through the difficult years after first contact with galactic civilization, helping to establish Earth's place among the stars. His weathered face showed the strain of constant vigilance, protecting humanity's growing interstellar interests. "Sir, priority emergency transmission from the Serenity Prime system," reported Communications Officer Davis. "The Aquarians are under attack by Skorathi Empire forces. They're requesting immediate military assistance." Rodriguez had read the classified reports about the Skorathi. The insectoid empire had been expanding aggressively for the past year, overwhelming peaceful worlds with brutal efficiency. The Federation's response had been typically cautious, trying to negotiate while the Skorathi consumed world after world. "What's the Federation's response?" Rodriguez asked, though he suspected. He already knew. "All Federation fleets are engaged elsewhere, sir. The Skorathi are attacking on multiple fronts. No assistance is available for Serenity Prime." Rodriguez studied the tactical display showing the location of Earth's fleets. Most were protecting human colony worlds or escorting merchant vessels through dangerous space. Only one major force was available for immediate deployment, the 3rd Expeditionary Fleet under Captain Sarah Chun. He had served with Chun during the Pirate Wars. Watching her lead desperate battles against overwhelming odds, she was exactly the kind of officer who would volunteer for a suicide mission to save innocent people. The problem was that this might actually be a suicide mission. "Get me Captain Chun," Rodriguez ordered. "Priority Alpha communication." Within minutes, Chun's image appeared on the main display. The fleet captain was a compact woman with steel-gray eyes and the bearing of someone who had earned her rank through combat rather than politics. Behind her, Rodriguez could see the bridge of her flagship, the EDF Valiant. "Admiral, I assume this is about the Aquarian situation," Chun said without preamble. "My communications officer has been monitoring the emergency channels. 67 Skorathi vessels against your 12 ships, Captain. The odds are not in your favor." Chun's expression didn't change. "Respectfully, sir, the odds are never in anyone's favor when they're fighting for their lives. These Aquarians are peaceful people. They've never hurt anyone. If we don't help them, who will?" Rodriguez felt a surge of pride in his officer. This was why humans had earned their place in the galaxy, despite the fears of other species. They didn't just think about survival. They thought about what was right. "You have authorization for immediate deployment, Captain. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. Protect the Aquarians by any means necessary." Chun nodded grimly. "Understood, Admiral. We'll show these bugs what happens when they attack innocent people while humans are watching." The 3rd Expeditionary Fleet began its emergency departure within the hour. 12 ships against an enemy force that had already proven its ability to destroy entire civilizations. But as the fleet entered hyperspace, carrying Earth's answer to the desperate plea for help, none of the human crews were thinking about the odds. They were thinking about the peaceful people who were dying while they had the power to help. The Deathworlders were coming, and the Skorathi were about to learn what real predators looked like. The Deathworld response, the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Serenity Prime system, like wolves emerging from a forest. Captain Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the EDF Valiant, watching the tactical display update with grim satisfaction. What she saw made her jaw clench with controlled anger. Serenity Prime was dying. The beautiful ocean world that had sparkled like a blue jewel in the promotional videos was now surrounded by the debris of its own defenses. Skorathi ships swarmed around the planet like carrion feeders, their dark hulls reflecting the fires of burning orbital installations. Most disturbing were the massive shapes moving beneath the planet's surface, Skorathi submersible assault craft, preparing to invade the underwater cities where the Aquarians lived. "Sensor analysis," Chun ordered, her voice carrying the calm authority of an officer who had seen too many battles to be intimidated by long odds. 67 active Skorathi vessels, Captain, reported Lieutenant Commander Park from the sensor station. 43 in orbital positions, 24 conducting submarine operations. Hull composition appears to be standard Skorathi bioarmor. Energy signatures match known plasma weapon systems. Chun studied the enemy formation with the eye of a veteran tactician. The Skorathi had arranged their ships in a classic siege pattern, designed to prevent escape while systematically destroying the planet's ability to resist. It was efficient, brutal, and exactly what she had expected from a hive-minded species that viewed conquest as a biological imperative. "Communications, get me a channel to the Aquarian leadership," Chun commanded. "Channel open, Captain." "Ambassador, Coral is responding." The voice that came through the speakers was musical, but strained with exhaustion and despair. "Unknown vessels, this is Ambassador Coral of Serenity Prime. If you are Federation forces, please identify yourselves. Our people are dying." "Ambassador Coral, this is Captain Sarah Chun of the Earth Defense Force ship Valiant. We received your distress call. We're here to help." A long pause followed, filled with the sounds of underwater explosions and the distinctive whine of Skarathi plasma weapons. When Coral spoke again, her voice carried disbelief and desperate hope. "Earth forces? The Deathworlders? But you're so far away. We thought no one would come." Chun felt the familiar surge of determination that had carried her through every impossible battle. "We're here now, Ambassador, and we're going to send these bugs back to whatever hole they crawled out of." On the planet's surface, deep beneath the ocean in the Emergency Command Center, Ambassador Coral watched the tactical display with amazement. The 12 human ships were moving into formation, but not the defensive pattern she had expected. Instead, they were spreading out in an aggressive attack formation that would take them directly into the heart of the Skarathi swarm. "They're going to attack," Dr. Morena observed, her voice filled with awe. 12 ships against 67. It's impossible. Coral studied the human vessels through the long-range sensors. They were unlike any ships she had ever seen, built like floating fortresses with thick armor plating and weapon ports that bristled with threatening energy. Where Aquarian ships were graceful and Federation vessels were elegant, human ships looked like they were designed for war. The Skarathi had noticed the newcomers as well. The insectoid commanders, linked by their hive mind, quickly identified the human ships as a new threat. Orders flowed through the psychic network, and the Skarathi began repositioning their forces to deal with the unexpected arrivals. The Skarathi Queen, commanding from her massive flagship, examined the human vessels with interest. The new ships were small and appeared primitive compared to the advanced biotechnology of the Skarathi Empire. Their designs were crude and angular, lacking the organic efficiency that marked truly evolved species. This would be an easy victory. Another example of the Empire's superiority over the inferior races that infested the galaxy. The first exchange of fire came when the Skarathi opened up with their plasma cannons. Streams of superheated gas erupted from dozens of weapons, creating a wall of destructive energy that had vaporized the Aquarian defense fleet in minutes. The human ships disappeared behind curtains of blazing plasma, and the Skarathi commanders prepared to watch another enemy fleet die dot when the plasma cleared. The human ships were still there, their hulls glowing with heat, but otherwise undamaged. Whatever they were made of, it wasn't melting under the Skorathi's primary weapons. "Hull integrity at 100%, reported Commander Sullivan from the tactical station. "The ablative armor is performing as designed. Their plasma can't penetrate our defenses." Asterisk Chun smiled coldly. Human scientists had studied every available sample of Skarathi technology, developing countermeasures for their most common weapons. The ablative armor coating was designed specifically to disperse plasma energy, turning the Skorathi's greatest advantage into a useless light. "Show. All ships return fire," Chun commanded. "Let's show them what real weapons look like." The human fleet opened up with everything they had. Magnetic railguns fired depleted uranium slugs at tremendous velocity, each round carrying enough kinetic energy to punch through a mountain. Missile pods released swarms of fusion warheads that sought their targets with deadly precision. Particle beam cannons sent focused streams of charged particles that could slice through metal like a hot knife through butter. The Skarathi had evolved their bioships to resist energy weapons and plasma attacks. Their organic hulls could absorb tremendous amounts of heat and radiation, allowing them to survive in the vacuum of space for extended periods. But they had never encountered weapons designed to cause pure physical destruction. The first railgun round struck a medium-sized Skarathi vessel amidships. The bio-armor that had shrugged off Federation plasma cannons cracked like an eggshell. Under the kinetic impact, the uranium slug punched completely through the ship, creating a massive hole that vented atmosphere and biological fluids into space. Fusion missiles followed close behind, their warheads detonating against the Skarathi hulls with devastating effect. The bioships had no defense against raw nuclear energy that cooked their organic components from the inside out. Entire sections of the enemy vessels simply disintegrated, leaving only drifting chunks of charred material. Multiple enemy vessels destroyed, Sullivan reported, his voice filled with grim satisfaction. They're breaking formation, Captain. I think we surprised them. Chun watched the Skarathi fleet scatter in confusion. The insectoid ships were clearly trying to understand what had just happened. Their most advanced biotechnology had been defeated by weapons they considered primitive. The hive mind was struggling to process the unexpected development. They're not used to enemies who fight back effectively, Chun observed. Maintain attack formation. Target the command ships first. The battle continued for 30 minutes of devastating human firepower. Every time the Skarathi tried to regroup, human weapons would tear through their formations again. The bioships were fast and maneuverable, but they couldn't get close enough to use their plasma weapons effectively. Against the human fleet's superior armor, Asterisk. On Serenity Prime, Ambassador Coral watched the impossible battle unfold with growing amazement. The humans were not just fighting, they were winning. In half an hour, they had destroyed more Skarathi ships than the entire Akorian defense fleet had managed to damage. How are they doing this? Marina asked. Her voice filled with wonder. Coral studied the human attack patterns, noting the deadly coordination between the 12 ships. Each vessel supported the others while maintaining constant pressure on the enemy. But it was more than just tactics. The humans fought with a controlled aggression that the peaceful Aquarians could never match. They're predators, Coral realized. Real predators. They don't just fight to survive. They fight to win. The Skarathi Queen, watching her forces die in unprecedented numbers, sent out a desperate psychic call. More bioships appeared at the edge of the system, responding to her summons. Fresh Skarathi vessels moved to reinforce the failing attack, bringing the enemy numbers back up to over 50 ships. Captain Chun saw the reinforcements appear on her sensors and smiled grimly. More targets, she said simply. But the reinforcements also brought new problems. Among the fresh Skarathi ships were heavy assault vessels designed to crack planetary defenses. These ships immediately began moving toward Serenity Prime's surface, preparing to complete the invasion that the orbital battle had delayed. Captain, Communications Officer Torres called out urgently. Ambassador Coral is reporting Skarathi submarines breaching their underwater cities. The assault troops are beginning their attack. Chun made a decision that would be studied in military academies for decades to come. Commander Sullivan, prepare the Marine battalions for underwater combat operations. We're going swimming. Plea. Human Marines had trained for combat in every environment their Deathworld had produced, from the crushing depths of Earth's oceans to the frozen wasteland of Antarctica. But fighting underwater on an alien world was still a new challenge. Within minutes, they were loading into specially designed drop pods that could survive both the vacuum of space and the crushing pressure of deep ocean. Captain Lisa Park, commanding the destroyer Retribution, watched the Marine insertion with professional interest. This is insane, she observed. We're about to fight a space battle and an underwater war simultaneously. "That's what we do," Chen replied. "We adapt." The drop pods launched from the human ships like falling stars, streaking through Serenity, Prime's atmosphere before plunging into the planet's vast oceans. Each pod carried a squad of Marines equipped with the latest underwater combat gear, weapons designed to function in liquid environments, and enough determination to take on the entire Skarathi Empire if necessary. Commander Jake Sullivan led the first wave of Marines into the underwater city of Coral Gardens, where the Skarathi assault troops were systematically destroying everything in their path. The insectoid warriors were perfectly adapted for underwater combat, their exoskeletons protecting them from pressure, while their organic weapons continued to function in the liquid environment. The Marines hit the Skarathi like an underwater avalanche. Human weapons, designed for the diverse environments of Earth, worked perfectly beneath the waves. Sonic grenades sent shockwaves through the water that could stun or kill Skarathi warriors. Underwater assault rifles fired specially, designed rounds that maintained their velocity in liquid. Combat knives made from Earth's strongest alloys could pierce Skarathi armor that had resisted Aquarian defensive measures. But it was the Marines themselves that proved most effective. They fought with the same controlled aggression that had made their species feared throughout the galaxy. Where the Aquarians had tried to negotiate and the Federation had relied on superior technology, the humans simply fought harder than their enemies thought possible. Above the planet, the space battle continued with devastating intensity. The Skarathi reinforcements had expected to overwhelm the human fleet through sheer numbers, but they discovered that Deathworlders didn't fight like other species. When faced with impossible odds, they didn't retreat or surrender. They got angry. "All ships converge on the Skarathi flagship," Chun ordered. "It's time to cut the head off this snake." The EDF Valiant led the charge directly into the heart of the Skarathi formation, its weapons blazing defiance at the enemy. The other human ships followed, their crews knowing that their captain would never ask them to do something she wouldn't do herself. The Skarathi Queen watched the humans approach with growing alarm. These creatures fought with a ferocity that the hive mind couldn't comprehend. They seemed to actually enjoy combat, treating it as a challenge rather than a necessity. When her bioships damaged human vessels, the crews didn't retreat. They fought harder. The final battle for Serenity Prime lasted 3 hours. When it ended, the Skarathi fleet was scattered wreckage drifting in the system's outer reaches. The few surviving bioships fled into hyperspace, carrying news of their defeat back to the Empire's core worlds. The Skarathi Queen's flagship was a burning hulk, its organic systems failing as the hive mind tried to process the impossible reality of total defeat. On the planet's surface, Ambassador Coral swam through the ruins of Coral Gardens, surveying the damage. The Skarathi assault had been devastating, but the city could be rebuilt. More importantly, her people were alive. The human Marines had saved them when no one else could. "Ambassador," Captain Chun's voice came through the communication system, "the Skarathi have been defeated. Your system is secure." Coral looked up toward the surface, where the human ships waited like guardian angels. "Captain Chun, how can we ever repay you? You came so far to save people you didn't even know." Chun's response would be remembered by the Aquarians for generations. "You don't repay family, Ambassador. You were in trouble, and we helped. That's what friends do." The human fleet remained in the Serenity Prime system for 2 weeks, helping with reconstruction and ensuring that the Skarathi didn't return. When they finally departed, they left behind a small monitoring station and a promise. If the Skarathi ever came back, the Deathworlders would be ready. The news of the battle spread throughout the galaxy like wildfire. The Skarathi Empire, previously considered unstoppable, had been defeated by a small human fleet. Other species began to look at the newcomers from Earth with new respect. The Deathworlders had proven that they weren't just dangerous to their enemies. They were reliable allies to their friends. And in the depths of Serenity Prime's oceans, the Aquarians built a monument to their human saviors. It bore a simple inscription in both Aquarian and human languages. When the gentle called for help, the warriors answered. This is the way of friendship among the stars. The Skarathi Empire would think twice before attacking peaceful worlds again. The galaxy had learned that Earth's children were watching, and they did not abandon their friends.